FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today's November 27th, 2017. The month is gone. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope all of you enjoyed it out there. As always, be part of the show. Send us an email at kl@kerrylutz.com. The Twitter feed's at Kerry Lutz. So, interesting story here. Do you think self-segregation for leftists is a good idea? Well, our good friend Daniel Greenfield is with us now from sultankanish.blogspot.com. Daniel, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
So they want to open up a leftist hotel, an anti-Trump hotel in Washington, D.C., with additional locations coming soon in Seattle, Hong Kong, and San Francisco. What kind of craziness is this?
Well, the left has made it very clear after the election that they don't share a country with us. They're making it clear in their support for the boycott of the national anthem that they don't even really see themselves as Americans. So if they can't share a country with us, if they really don't want to share a government with us, why would they want to share a hotel with us?
Good question. So what are they going to do? They're going to have like a room where you can burn the American flag, where you can do drugs, the Woodstock Pavilion, where everybody can go dive into the mud and get dirty. What's the concept here?
Well, keep in mind, this is a luxury hotel because for all the leftists insist that they're the oppressed. In fact, they're the very wealthy and very powerful elite. So this is a luxury hotel. It's an expensive Washington, D.C. hotel. There'll be other hotels in San Francisco and so forth. Again, very wealthy places. And it's going to have crystal healing. It's going to have gurus coming in. It's going to have prominent lefties coming in to give lectures. It's going to have organic mattresses. So the left likes to live in comfort or likes the good things in life. It just doesn't want anybody who disagrees with it to be able to have any of those things. So the hotel is perfect for that because everybody who works there has to be on the left. It's complete self-segregation, and it allows the left to maintain this kind of wonderful dictatorship where only its people can exist in the space.
Well, when I have to confess, Daniel, when I first read about it, I was thinking I was reading something from The Onion. And, leftists like pretty much to live the good life, but they like the rest of us to pay for it. Do you think they're going to try to get subsidies for this hotel?
I'm sure there'll be a whole lot of conferences, quote unquote, taking place there by nonprofits and, for that matter, by parts of the government in the imperial city of Washington, D.C. And that way money will keep flowing to it, taxpayer money, of course.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they'll try to get tax abatements for helping improve the local economy of Washington, D.C.
I'm sure they'll game it every single possible way, and I'm sure plenty of government money will end up being used for it.
So you think this thing's really going to be successful?
Well, the left really hates the rest of the country, and within Washington, D.C., it's really a leftist enclave where they've got a whole lot of money and power. And just if you've read the recent reports, much of the wealthiest counties in America now are the bedroom communities for Washington, D.C., so you have this network of consultants, of lobbyists, of government workers, of various subcontractors, and these people have amassed a lot of money under Obama. They're the backbone of the local so-called resistance, and they very much hate the right and anybody just who isn't on their side. So I think they're going to very much want to patronize something like this.
Really? Well, I will agree with you that the sprawl around Washington, D.C., particularly Northern Virginia, I remember stopping 60 miles south of Washington, D.C., looking for gas and a cup of coffee. And there were whole new subdivisions completely built out of nothing that was there. This had just sprawled out to house all the teeming hordes of Washington, D.C. bureaucrats. But one good thing about Trump, at least he's gotten rid of, by last count, 13,000 of them, and he's still working on it.
There needs to be a whole lot more, because this is an imperial city. And if I can just shift the topic for a very brief second, the battle now we're having over whether President Trump gets to appoint the next head of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, or whether the bureaucracy gets to appoint the next head, is emblematic of this. Do we have a government that's controlled by the American people, or do we have a government that's controlled by the bureaucracy in the imperial city of Washington, D.C.? And the people in this imperial city would very much be fans of getting these kinds of segregated hotels and ultimately a segregated city, because that's what Washington, D.C. also is.
Well, now that you mention it, I wasn't going to bring this up, but we should bring it up. For 20 years, the U.S. Congress has had a slush fund for payments of settlements to former employees who've been sexually harassed, I'm sure, by representatives and senators from both sides of the aisle. And now it's just coming to light that they've been doing this. So yet another example of the imperial city.
It's interesting just how the rules work so differently for Congress than they work for just about anybody in the normal business, because Congress has passed all these rules and regulations, and there's a lot of downward pressure to have very demanding rules for anything like sexual harassment. If you engage in the kind of behavior that members of Congress were alleged to behave in, right away you're going to be dealing with human resources. Members of Congress were not dealing with that. Their employees basically had to go through this really complicated process, and the process did not affect the actual members of Congress at all. And this is just another example of how Congress lives by a very different set of rules than ordinary people live by.
Oh, yeah. And the way that the congressional staff gets treated, unless you're at the very top of the staff, you're grossly underpaid and grossly overworked. You don't get overtime working on Capitol Hill till midnight every night, but yet you're a junior staffer. You're expected to always be there and to have your life come in second to your job.
Exactly. And the rules and regulations that just suit the people who run the country are radically different than those that the rest of us live by. And that's a fundamental problem. That's why we need to really make sure that the rules apply across the board. And that's what we don't have now. We have one set of rules for the political elites, and we have another set of rules for the rest of us.
Yeah, and Conyers was threatening to blow the whistle on everyone and bring down a lot of people. So Pelosi towed the line for him, didn't she?
Yeah, she did right away. He's an icon. We've gone from believe women to no, don't believe women when they accuse Democrats, believe women when they accuse Republicans. And again, that's the underlying theme here. There's no real push for Franken to resign. By now, he's got 4 accusers, I believe. There's no real push for Conyers to resign because, again, it's 2 sets of rules, and it's one set of rules for us, one set of rules for the elites, and it's one set of rules for Democrats, or the ones who are supposed to be in charge of the country because they have the moral authority of the left, and another set of rules for Republicans. And again, this has to stop because it breaks everything that America stands for. America is a society that is built and based on equality. And what the left is doing is it creates feudal societies, it creates avenues of privilege for itself, and at the same time, it takes away the rights from the rest of us.
So getting on to another article that you wrote recently, and I think it's tied to what you're saying, the party seems to have turned on the Clintons, and they've tried it before. They haven't been able to purge the party of them, but now this time looks like it might be different.
Well, again, the very obvious difference between Conyers and Franken and the Clintons is that the Clintons, their political careers are over. There's no cost to be taken by actually dumping them. But there's another factor, which is that Hillary Clinton is not leaving. Just today, John McCain ridiculed the idea that she's still around. And really, in general, Republicans, Democrats, once you actually go for the big chair and you lose, whether it's Romney, McCain, John Kerry for that matter, Dukakis, you don't see these people constantly being around. They leave. That's the normal thing to do. You had your big shot, you blew it. You're not around all the time. You're not on television all the time. You're not constantly doing a book tour. And Hillary Clinton has completely broken with that. And the question is, why has she broken with that? The answer is that she still has political ambitions, and that's something the Democrats really do not want. So Hillary Clinton first started an organization that was going to siphon off some money from the left, and now some of her people were launching an even bigger organization at the beginning of November that would sort of try to funnel money from the DNC. And if you are familiar with the whole Donna Brazil thing, that's what the Clintons have been doing. They've been funneling a whole lot of money out of the DNC. So at this point, suddenly you had a whole bunch of Democrats waking up and saying, what Bill Clinton did was completely unacceptable and we have to condemn it and believe his victims. And it has nothing to do with them suddenly coming around to believing Bill Clinton's victims all these decades later. It has to do with the Clintons becoming a major inconvenience. Hillary has terrible poll ratings, and the Clintons are still trying to get money out of the party. And the party, a lot of people in the party are just saying, we need to get rid of them. And a convenient way to get rid of them is to suddenly start believing Bill's victims.
So this is just pure expediency, political expediency, nothing to do with any values or with the desire to clean up the image.
Absolutely not. This is politics, and politics is a dirty game, and democratic politics is particularly dirty. And again, if they were having some sort of a moral awakening, there was plenty of time for them to do it. And this kind of complete 180-degree turn where they go from completely denying and rejecting the idea that this was even an issue to suddenly going, yes, this was very, very wrong. It's just fake. And the people doing this were the people saying the exact opposite thing years ago. So it's fake. It's transparently fake. And you have to ask why this is happening.
Yeah, why and why now? And
the basic answer is that the Clintons have been pushing things too far. Hillary Clinton is just now leaving. She upstaged Bernie Sanders' book tour. She's attacking Joe Biden. Both of those are likely 2020 prospects, which again is a sort of message that that the Clintons are going to be around. They're going to be undermining their political opponents, and that Hillary Clinton might even go for president one more time. And this is something the Democrats really do not want. They don't want the Clintons taking their money. They don't want the Clintons taking the oxygen from their political candidates. They don't want the Clintons undermining their political candidates. So again, suddenly they're going, oh my goodness, all these poor women abused by Bill Clinton. How could he do that? How could we let that happen? It's just fake. It's completely fake.
Totally disingenuous. And you think any possibility of the Clintons ever facing justice, real justice like the rest of us do, Daniel?
The Clintons, I think they'd have to keep getting on their party's bad side for them to actually contemplate legal sanctions. And the Clintons so far have been very good. They've been very clever at playing these loyalty games, at using their connections, at saying, and not that I didn't do this, but to the best of my recollection, or there's no legal controlling authority, or what's the meaning of is anyway. And so far they've gotten away with it. It's possible that at some point the hammer might come down. But again, I think for the hammer to come down the Clintons, really the hammer would have to come down on a lot of the establishment, and that would require a kind of revolution.
Yeah, a kind of revolution, and the chances of that are slim to none. But I guess we could always hope, right?
We can always hope. The future is very hard to predict, and as we've seen in the last 2 years, things can be very unpredictable. We're in a time of sudden and rapid change, of large-scale public dissatisfaction, and the willingness to articulate that dissatisfaction and put it into service of a political cause. So we don't know. It could very well happen.
Yeah, I guess stranger things have happened, and they just didn't have the sense to leave. You know, going after Trump the way they've gone after Trump, probably not the wisest move for them in the long run, because he's the one person who really can do something.
Well, I think they have very little self-control, and that's just been the narrative all along. And people with very little self-control have this idea that they can get away with it because they've been getting away with it before, and when the hammer actually comes down, they're completely unprepared for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think they were rather surprised about the stories hitting when they did, Uranium One and everything else. And Donna Brazil's whole expose about the whole primary process being rigged. You know, I take a little different view on that, Daniel. I believe that Bernie Sanders went in there with his eyes wide open, knowing that it was fixed, that he was a sacrificial lamb, and the primaries had the effect of taking the attention away from Trump's criticism of Clinton, and that it was a smokescreen. And then once he got in there, he saw what a weak candidate she really was, and he thought he really had a chance. But I think he entered the whole process knowing, you know, eyes wide open, or a wide shut, however you want to look at it, knowing that this whole thing, that he was just playing a role here.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of the whole follow the money school of analyzing politics. And the thing to understand is that there is a lot of money to be made from getting into presidential elections, even if you don't actually win. For that matter, if you don't even plan to win, but you have a good strategy for cashing in, you can make a lot of money. And he certainly made a lot of money.
Yeah, he wound up buying another house on the lake there in Vermont. And then, you know, when he was in the debates and he didn't discuss he refused to discuss her damn emails. To me, that was the giveaway that he was never really serious. He was never really a serious candidate, at least when he entered. And maybe one could make the argument about Trump also. Maybe he was just testing the waters, but when he saw how weak his competition was, he went for it all. And Sanders kind of like pulled his punches.
Well, what happened in the Democratic primaries, much as what happened initially in the Republican primaries, is that when there's a kind of anointed candidate, he's the one who basically gets to pick and choose which consultants, which organizations he's going to be paying. Now, in Jeb Bush's case, this created a whole lot of animosity. On the Democrat side, though, you had Hillary Clinton completely dominating the process, which meant she got to completely pick and choose because anybody who wasn't working for her, in theory, had no actual income stream. Now, there was an organization that some people might be familiar with that's known as Revolution Messaging. It played a key role in the Obama campaign, but Hillary Clinton did not bring them on board. So Revolution Messaging basically tried to create their own candidate. What they did first was they ran a draft Elizabeth Warren campaign, but Elizabeth Warren did not have any interest in actually climbing on board and fighting Hillary. So the second choice of Revolution Messaging was Bernie Sanders, and that's where the whole apparatus was built up. Now, the Bernie Sanders campaign was very unique in one particular way financially. There was absolutely no cap on just the amount of money that would be going to the people who were working for him. So Revolution Messaging pigged out like crazy. And after Bernie Sanders lost, they created Our Revolution together with Bernie Sanders, which is unprecedented in some other ways, and that it basically has a complete lack of transparency and can take as much money as it wants. So in part, the whole Bernie Sanders campaign was a financial gimmick by some people who are very good at actually making money from campaigns, but not necessarily at winning campaigns. And Bernie Sanders has also done very well for himself. He joined the 1%, and he's going to relaunch in 2020. He's already got the infrastructure going. And again, this is not so much going to be about winning because that's not very likely, but it's going to be about making money. It's about making money for Bernie Sanders. It's about making money for Revolution Messaging.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because, like I say, he just never behaved as a real candidate. And I think the whole reaction against Hillary Clinton, which resulted in default support for him, took him really by surprise. But this is, this is the kind of nonsense that we experience in politics, modern American politics, all the time. The one thing amazing about Trump was that he didn't need any of those consultants. He didn't want them. He rejected the whole consultancy class. Hence, the reason why the GOP establishment really never rallied behind him, but he didn't need them.
That's very true. And the defeat of the consultant class is really a major aspect of what happened in this election. And people, certainly anybody who works in politics but genuinely believes in it, has been infuriated by this for a very long time. They've been infuriated by seeing just political donations being spent on these fundraisers. They've been infuriated to see just the sheer amount of money it was fundraised from conservatives and was just being burned up. And we're talking $10 million, $20 million, $50 million that was just being used to pad out the same class of parasites. And Trump's victory just demonstrated that you could run a straight political campaign based on charisma, based on basic level organizing, without necessarily spending a whole lot of money on this garbage.
Hey, and you would think the liberals would really embrace Trump because he took the money out of politics, right? I mean, this is what they've been complaining about for years now. They want the money taken out of politics, and Trump is actually somebody who did it. But I guess they're the kind of people you just can't make happy, Daniel.
Well, they complain about money in politics the way they complain about sexual harassment. By that, they mean it's other people who are doing it. When they do it, of course, it's okay. When it comes to money in politics, they're taking in huge amounts of money from unions. And, whenever there were ballot measures that said, we're going to take money out of politics, we're going to cut down on political donations, we're also going to cut down on the amount of money that can come in from unions. And they talk about a lot about corporate money. They have nothing to say about unions. The moment you touch union money, they go rabid like a mama bear with her cub. So they absolutely have no interest in taking money out of politics. In fact, all their campaign reform measures, finance reform measures, have had one net effect, which is to empower a lot of these third-party, these dark money operations. They've put George Soros and his Democracy Alliance in the driver's seat. They've put a lot of these organizations that are far more radical and far more leftist than the DNC in power, and that's why the DNC is starving. That's why Hillary Clinton was able to basically dominate the DNC and Obama Obama was also, because it's all about putting money into politics, not taking money out of politics.
Yeah, I know. It's just the hypocrisy. And just one final question, Daniel. You mentioned the emergence of third parties. Are we going to see more of this, or are the parties going to get their groove back?
In the sense of having an actual third party?
Yeah.
Or in the sense of dark money? In the sense of having a third party, I think it's not impossible. There are fracture points for both Republicans and Democrats where they could both split into two parties. I don't think that's very likely to happen because, again, there is a lot of money invested in this. And just there's a lot of people who have made their whole lives work out of this. And it's one thing to elect somebody like Trump. It's another thing to take over the party apparatus at the local level and then at the national level and just coral all the donors. So it's something that could conceivably happen, but I think both parties are just kind of going to stay with it. But conceivably, if one party does split, it makes it more likely that the other party will also split. Yeah,
which may not be such a bad thing. Well, we're just going to have to see what happens. So, hey, make sure you take a look at Daniel's blog over at sultankanish.blogspot.com. Also, we find you on frontpagemag.com, correct?
That's correct. I'm a showman journalism fellow at the David Harwitz Freedom Center.
Excellent. So questions, comments for Daniel, myself, email us kl@kerrylutz.com. Don't forget the Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Daniel, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on, and have a very good day.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.